So I am passionate about physics. I'm all here to make you fall in love with physics. That's all. Very simple. What I felt, same thing I want to share with you. The excitement, the amazement, the astonishing thing about the nature, and how everything is encoded in the language of mathematics. So we may think mathematics is of no use, but everything in the nature is encoded in the language of mathematics. So if you want to understand the nature, so we will learn in the language what she speaks in, as Richard Feynman said. So I'll welcome you all. Hello everyone. Can you see the screen? What I shared? Just you can send the S in your chat box. So this is what we are going to learn in this entire course. So from the free fall of an apple to the orbital motion of the moon. So why does an apple fall? So anybody?
Gravity.
Everybody knows.
Gravitational force, sir.
Yes. If people doesn't want to talk, they can put it in a chat box. Why does an apple fall?
Gravitational force. Gravity.
So everyone knows this. This is very much obvious. So, but my next question is, okay, gravitational force. So is force always required to keep things moving? You can, that a pole will be appearing on your screen. You can give yes or no. You can give yes or no option there. Submit your answer. So we are ending the polling here. So 63% people said yes, and 38% has said no. So the wide misconception is force always required to keep the things moving. So that is the wide understood concept. I can't say misconception, because when you are living on the earth with the earthly experience, you will have this experience. What is that experience? That is practicality. That is common sense. So our common sense always sometimes helps, but maximum it will misleads you. So we are thinking force always required to keep things moving. Maximum 63% voted for yes, but actually it is no. So to all the 63% people, you said yes. So I want to ask you one more question. Then this astronaut, if you see, actually the astronaut is a lady. That is from a movie Gravity, Sandra Bullock, and she was thrown by initial force, and she is moving continuously into the deep space. So is she going to stop, or she will move eternally? She will be moving eternally in the free space. So what keeps her to move eternally in the free space if there is no continuous force to push her? So what is that keeping her to move eternally? So I'm going to tell you, it may be shocking to you. You don't need a force to keep things moving in a space. So maybe on Earth, because of earthly experience, you will be, because of the gravity, you will be having that feeling always we need to give a force to push things out. But actually in the gravity-free region, in the space, you don't need a force. So if you want to understand the force universally, you can't define a force from your earthly experience. You have to define it from the universal perspective. So from the universal perspective, you have to define a force. So as I shown you, the force, we don't need a force in a gravity-free region to keep things moving. But more precisely, I can say you, force not required to maintain the same speed in space. As you can see, so she is moving in the same speed into the deep space. Once she was pushed by an object and she was hit badly, and she got pushed in the straight line into the deep space eternally at the same speed. So nobody can stop her unless until she collided with some asteroid, or she was pulled by some heavier object in its gravitational field. But until then, she will be moving in a straight line with same speed. So that is the fate of that actress. So it may be shocking to you, but you may have, that's what, as I said, that the simple question may come: why my bicycle halts when I stop pedaling? So if force is not required to keep things moving, and the only initial force is sufficient to give a push. So my bicycle should go eternally. Why it is stopping? Anyone? Everybody? Why your bicycle halts when you stop pedaling? Hello? Hello?
Friction.
Anybody there?
Yes, sir. Friction.
Yes. Yes, friction. So friction between what?
The road and the tire of the cycle.
Actually, that friction will help the cycle to move. It will never stop the cycle. That is called rolling friction. Because of the friction between the tire and the road, it helps to roll. It will never stop the vehicle. So that is actually helping in our motion. But here other frictions place, that is sliding friction between the mechanical parts and the little amount of air friction. So air friction and the sliding friction between the mechanical parts. But the rolling friction here helps to roll. So it aids you. If there is no friction, your bicycle won't go. If there is no friction, you can't walk. So actually here friction is helping you to move forward. So that is called rolling friction is helping you. But what friction stopping the vehicle is the sliding friction between the mechanical parts. There are parts in any machine, if you see, there are sliding motion between many mechanical parts. And there will be a friction. And to avoid that friction only, we are using oil or lubrication so that it will have that free motion. So because of that friction between the sliding parts in any machine, that will be generated as a heat, and whatever initial energy you gained by initial force, that has been lost. So in order to keep the same speed, you need that force, minimum force to keep the same speed. So you have to always pedal it to keep at the same speed. If you want to increase the speed, you have to pedal it more than before. So now we know from this earthly experience. So everybody, including Aristotle, thought this. What he has thought? Because of these experiences, worldly experiences, he thought every object wants to have the tendency to go to rest. So to move it from rest, we have to give a force. That's what Aristotle thought. So that is what everybody is having, that perception. We need a force to push or pull things. Maybe in your textbook also, the first definition they'll give you about force is a push or pull. But that actually misleads you. This I figured out after a long time. You may even think after I finished the college only, this I figured out. Actually, what I read about force is entirely wrong. This is simple. What Newton, actually will come to Newton. If you think universally, the force is required only to change the speed, not to maintain the speed. So every object will move at the same speed with the initial force. So from where that object got the initial force? So we can say Big Bang. One type of theory it's saying, by observing the data, what is available, they're saying the universe was formed after the Big Bang. So from the Big Bang, everything started moving away. So from that, it got that motion. So everything is moving relatively to each other. So everything is moving at a same speed unless if these objects experiences a force, it will be moving straight line in the same speed. So that is the one type of perspective you can get from the universe. So leave the worldly experience aside and think always about universe when you are speaking about mechanics. Then bring to the earth. So earth is like a special case for the general perspective of the universe. So we no need to form the law only for earth. We have to form the understanding for the universe. Then if you bring to the earth what are all the conditions, you add that, then it will work for you. So you'll always think in terms of universe and space in mechanics. Then we'll come to the earth. So as you all said, it's due to frictional forces. That is not rolling friction. Keep it in mind. It will be helpful for you to understand in engineering. So this is a small picture, as I said. You need a force to maintain a same speed here on Earth, or generally wherever gravity affects. Wherever gravity plays into, you need a force to maintain the speed. But in a gravity-free region, you need a force to change speed, either to increase or to decrease. So when I said change speed, it may be from the rest, that is from 0 speed to some finite speed, or from one finite speed to another finite speed. So everything is called change of speed. So from rest to motion, or from one finite motion to another finite motion. For example, 0 speed to 2 km per hour, or from 2 km per hour to 10 km. Everything is called change of speed. Only for that you need a force. So to leave the object in the rest, in the space, always think about space. To leave the object in the space, you no need a force. To leave the object in the space at same speed, you no need a force. But to push the object from the rest or to change the object from one finite speed to other finite speed, you need a force. So that is the bigger picture. So we'll always see a bigger picture. So this is what Newton understands. He made the detailed study and he first wrote down his laws of motion, the Principia Mathematica. It is in Latin word. It is called Mathematical Principles. The full name is Mathematical Principles of Natural Philosophy. So he wrote down his laws of motion in that book. And he published some 400 years before, 350 years before. So this is the first law. So whatever we observe now, we can compile and see. So every object continue in its state of rest or state of uniform motion along a straight line. Underline that word, straight line. Okay. Even though it is a uniform motion, if it is not in a straight line, you need a force there. We will see later. So if it is in straight line, you need no need a force. So unless it is compelled to change its state by an external force. So we need an external force to change this state. So how these objects, so now we will apply this first law to our apple and bicycle problem. So why our apple fell down? Gravitational force, everybody said. It was at rest. So gravity causes the apple at rest from 0 speed to fall with some finite speed before reaching the ground. After reaching the ground, it may be at rest again. But before reaching the ground, that fraction of second before reaching, that one we are going to calculate. After reaching the ground, obviously the velocity will become 0. But we are going to bother about that speed that immediately, some fraction of seconds before reaching the ground, what was the speed it was hitting the ground. So that speed we are talking. That is some finite speed it will touch. So in our bicycle's case, so what force stopped from the finite speed to 0 speed? That is the friction, not rolling friction. Rolling friction will never stop. Rolling friction will help you. But the sliding friction, the mechanical parts and the air friction stopped the bicycle from finite speed to 0 speed. So to maintain the finite speed, you have to keep on pedal it. So here, the gravity is one of the 4 fundamental forces. So now I am going to classify the forces. So in our 2 cases, apple case and bicycle case, in apple case, the gravity was in a play. In bicycle case, the friction stopped the motion. So here gravity is one of the 4 fundamental forces. So when we say fundamental forces, these forces you can formulate, or these are all the forces, you can derive it from the nature, and what are the factor it depends on, you can arrive at one quantification value for that force. For example, you can arrive a formula for that force. These forces are dependent on some factors. So we can, from that factors, we can arrive that force. So those are all fundamental forces. We can actually derive it. But what about non-fundamental forces or pseudo forces? That is due to the effect of motion. For example, frictional force. It is not a fundamental force. That friction comes into play because of the effect of motion. Because of motion, the friction comes into play. Only we can measure by studying the motion. But these fundamental forces, you can study. Without the motion, we can say what is the force existing. So these are all the fundamentals. So now you can get the difference. What is the fundamental forces and other pseudo forces. But nowadays a study is going on. Friction is not a pseudo force. Friction is actually when the 2 objects are touching, there is an electromagnetic force, electromagnetic repulsion between the 2 objects. Because if you see in microscopic level, all the objects are made up of atoms. When the 2 objects are touching each other, they are not actually touching. There is a space between them because the 2 atoms are coming together. That electrons are there, orbiting electrons around the nucleus. That electrons having the what charge? Negative charge, and that is going to push the other electrons surrounding the different atom of different object. So because of the electromagnetic repulsion, so we are feeling the friction like that. Nowadays scientists are telling. So friction is not a pseudo force. Friction also real force from the electromagnetic forces, because electromagnetic is one of the fundamental forces. We can understand friction. So that is the debate now it's going on. Okay. Keeping it apart. So gravity is one of the fundamental force. What about other 3 forces? Anybody? What are all the other 4 fundamental forces apart from gravity?
There's a strong nuclear force.
Yes. So gravity and strong nuclear force, 2. Then third one?
Electromagnetic force.
Yes, already I said. Okay. Fourth one?
Weak nuclear force.
Yes, good. So these are all the fundamental forces. Okay, fine. So, but you would have seen in the movie Endran, they are telling about the fifth force. Okay, that is a fiction. But so far we discovered only 4 fundamental forces. They are telling about the rising of fifth force. Okay, fine. So now here, okay, already I said about this. So from Newton's first law, now we know force is necessary to change an object state. State means it may be either at rest or either in a uniform motion. You have to remember the word, not in a motion. Uniform motion and also in a straight line, along a straight line. That is one more state. One state is rest, one state is same speed in the same direction. So that is one more state. These 2 states, to change that state, you need a force. But to maintain the state, you don't need a force. That's what first law. So I want to ask you how these objects got this property, this natural property, when it is at rest or when it is in motion at the same speed in the same direction, it is possessing that property. You want to change it, it is offering you the resistance. So only you have to give the force, correct? This object possessing the internal property, when it is at a rest or when it is moving at a uniform speed in the same direction, it offering some kind of resistance to you. Otherwise, why you want to give a force? When you pull without a force, it should just turn away. If it going in a straight line, if you just give a little amount of force, we can't call it as a force. Just a touch is enough to pull it around. But it is not so. It is not so that much easy. It's offering the resistance for the change. So what property in a body offer that resistance? Anybody? It's some kind of a lazy property in the body. The body is possessing some kind of laziness. So laziness is there in the universe at all. In the universe itself, laziness is there. That we will see about least action in future. But laziness is there in the universe. If it wants to move in the same direction. You can't change its state in the same direction, the same speed. It wants to move. Or if it is at rest, it wants to be at rest. What offers this property to that body? What kind of quantity offers this? Anybody? That is the direct jump. But in between, one answer is that. That is, I am talking about a physical quantity. Inertia, we can't call it as a physical quantity, but there is a physical quantity which can be measured. So that offers to this body. So what is that physical quantity? Super. So mass. So the body got the mass, and the mass is offering this property to the body, the laziness, the natural laziness. It can't change its state or change its state of motion in a straight line whenever you want. So it demands a force. It demands a force from you. So this was already analyzed by Galileo. We know this famous experiment on Leaning Tower experiment in Pisa. So from this experiment, maybe that may not be true, but that is so much, what to say, we can connect it. So that is good to keep the myth. So what Galileo analyzed. So this picture, this GIF image I got from Brian Greene on in show he is done on experiment from the vacuum chamber. He used this real-time construction of what Galileo would have done. So here you can see there is a bowling ball and a feather. So it is in a vacuum chamber. There is no air resistance. We removed that factor. And they made some mechanical arrangements. At time equal to 0, both are falling. So that also they ensured. So they're not changing the time. So how much they ensured? At a time t equal to 0, so both have been left to fall by the mechanical clamp. You can see the mechanical clamp left at the same time. So now you can see both are falling at the. What explanation you can give for this? Anybody? You leave Galileo. Now everybody, what Galileo, through the eyes of Galileo, what you can say by seeing this? what you can observe. What is making you to wonder about this experiment? You just share your wonder. I want to know your response.
Gravitation force is not relied on mass.
Then gravitational force is not relied on mass. Then it depends on what? So both different masses are falling at the, what you can say, both are falling at the same speed or what?
Yeah, I think the acceleration.
No, one misconception is there. Both are falling at the same speed, right? Everybody is agreeing on that?
Yes.
So your same speed is at every interval of time, not at the initial time. For example, initially it was 0 speed. Then at 1 second, the speed got increased. At the second, the speed got increased. So speed is changing, but both the masses are changing the speed uniformly. The bowling mass also changing the speed uniformly. The feather also changing the speed uniformly. So it is accelerating at the same rate. So we can't say both are moving at the same speed, but if you say, you have to specify at an instant of time. So at an instant of time, they are at the same speed. But when you change the time, both are having the speed, increase of speed at the same amount. For example, the ball is increasing the speed by, for example, 1 meter per second. That feather also getting the speed increased by another 1 meter per second. So both are covering the same distance at the same interval of time. So their speed is increasing. If you move the time from 0 to, for example, it has taken 10 seconds to reach the ground. Every 1 second, both the objects are changing the speed. But if you compare the speed of the feather and the speed of the ball, that will be same at every second. So that is what you have to understand deep in that. So just like that, we can't pass it and go here. So what we can understand from this experiment, that speed is changing at same rate for both the body, irrespective of their masses. So whatever may be their masses, speed is changing at the both rate. So what we can infer from this? So one student has said, force is not depend on the mass. We will come to that conclusion. That also a wide misconception is there. We'll come to that conclusion. Here actually forces depends on the mass. Okay. But before that, one more question I want to ask you here. See, when there is no air resistance, why the feather got open? They are telling it's a vacuum chamber. But anybody give it a thought, why the feather got opened here? See, the feather is moving upward. Can you see? All the small the parts of the feathers are moving upward. Why it's so? When there is no air, what caused the feathers to move upward? See? Can you see? So no air is there, no air, it's a vacuum. So nothing is pushing the feathers away. But you can see here, when it is moving down, the feathers are moving up. Why it is that? No air friction not there. It's a vacuum chamber. There is no air molecules in that room, in that lab, wherever they're conducting the experiment. In that room, there is no air molecules. The pressure they maintain low. So the very rare air molecules here and there will be there. But what makes that feathers to move upwards when it is moving down? So here also you can understand one more thing called inertia. See, all the small feathers having the mass, little mass, and that is at the rest. When suddenly it is falling by a gravitational force, it wants to go back to the same position, right? But you can't observe that effect on the ball because it's a spherical ball. So no mass is moving away. But in the feather, all the tiny masses are loosely attached. So when it is falling down, these masses are going backwards to its original position called rest. No, leave me alone. I want to be at rest. That laziness. So it is pulling the feathers upwards. But in the same, but all the feathers will be in the same position, it will fall down. Because once it attains that state, it will be at the same state. it will never change. Correct? Okay, fine. We'll move on to next slide. So mass at rest in space has inherited resistance to change from the state of rest. That's what we said. The mass got this lazy property from the nature. But the same mass, when it is moving at a finite speed, it got an additional resistance. So when the mass at rest, what force you need to change its rest position to a speed, for example, 1 meter per second, when the same mass is moving at some finite speed, if you want to change from 1 meter per second to 2 meter per second, same change, you need some, you have to give some additional force to it. Because along with mass, you got one more lazy factor there, that is the object is moving at the same speed. So from the Newton's law, he said about the two states. One is the object at rest, another is object is moving at the same speed. But what about the object is having the mass and is moving at the same speed? You got the two factor into play. You have to give a extra force to change its state when the mass at some finite speed in space, to change its state of the motion. So here mass and speed collectively offers the inherited resistance. Not only mass and the speed also, the constant speed also collectively offers inherited resistance to change the state. It is called inertia. So inertia is the resistance to change. So mass is not like that. Mass, even though it is not moving, mass is there. Even though it is moving, mass is there. Mass is always there. So mass and speed, it is having the lazy property to change that, to change the state. It demands a force, external force from you. That resistance of the body, what it possesses, is called inertia. So inertia you can understand, like from the change only you can understand inertia. When the mass at rest, you can't say inertia is zero, because speed is zero, the mass at rest, you can't say inertia is zero. So inertia is to change the mass at rest to some speed, or from finite speed to some another finite speed. So inertia is like the resistance for the change. It's not the absolute value you can measure from any object. So you can measure the mass, you can measure the speed. From that, you can define one more property. Anybody? From the mass and speed of the object, you can define one more physical quantity. What is it? Anybody? Mass and speed collectively offers, okay, but mass and speed together having one more, defines one more physical quantity. It is not like that we are just like that combining and defining the term. It is actually the physical quantity. It is encoded in the nature's property that we are going to learn. What is this physical quantity really intuitively mean to us? So what is it mass and speed gives to you? Anybody? The chat box?
It's momentum.
Yes, it's a momentum. That is the one more physical quantity we have to think about it. So first law is about the object to change the state of an object. There are two states. Rest, again and again I'm repeating so that you have to follow this because this is crucial. So to change the state of rest of the object or state of motion, uniform motion along a straight line. So this word is very much important. Uniform straight line, same speed in the same direction. Anyway you can say. To change that, you need a force. So what demands that force? It's called inertia. So Newton has defined in one way, but what is actually saying about the lazy property of the body, objects, the natural laziness of the object, that is only he defines. So first law is also called law of inertia. So inertia only offers the resistance to change. To change to balance, to counteract the resistance, you need a force. So that's what first law is all about. Inertia offers you the resistance. To counteract the resistance, you need a force. So first law is also called law of inertia. So now you can see every object wants to move in a same speed at along the same direction. So here the bike is moving at some constant velocity, so hitting an object, so it is suddenly the speed has come to 0, but the person who is sitting on that bike, who is loosely connected, is not rigidly fixed to that bike. If he got rigidly fixed, he would have stayed there. Because he loosely connected, he is experiencing that force. This force is because of inertia. So why he again stopped on the road? Why he is not moving eternally? Because of sliding friction between the man and the road. So here he will stop. It will not help him to roll because he is not connected with any wheels to roll. So because of the sliding friction, the road and the person's back, he got stopped. But here one more thing, I want to again address that. Why the bike is moving at a constant speed? Because it's giving acceleration. Why he wants to give acceleration? Why he wants to keep the accelerator at the same position? He is supplying the fuel, keep on supplying the fuel to the engine to maintain the same speed. Why he wants to do that? Because on Earth, to keep the object in same speed, you have to give a force. That mechanical force is supplied by the burning of fuel. And the burning of fuel is pushing the piston, and the piston is rotating the crank, and the crank is rotating the wheel via chain. So you need a force to keep on moving on the Earth. On the space, you can save a lot of fuel. Once the initial push is enough to travel eternally in the direction wherever you want. So the minimum amount of fuel is required in space to move along the distance, whatever you want to move on the Earth. So that we are going to see next slide, the economic speed. So what's the recommended economic speed of any two-wheeler? Any two-wheeler you buy from any company, they will recommend some economic speed. Sir, you please maintain the speed in this so-and-so range. You will be having the fuel economy. So economic speed, what I mean is the fuel economy. So you have to give less amount of fuel to maintain that speed. So what is that? Please submit your poll. So in the given option, you please select. No, it's not about testing your, what to say, it's not like Konbranaga Crorepati to give you some prize. It's just to make you to understand the concepts behind it. You can choose whatever answer you want. You are not going to lose anything. Just submit, right or wrong, just submit. We know widely what has been believed. Okay. Shall we end the poll, sir? Okay. 75% said 50 to 80 kilometer. Okay. You are aware of the information, just an information. But what for? You're never bothered. Maybe some people would have bothered. What for they're giving the speed? How 10 km per hour is not economic, but 50 to 80 is economic? Anybody? Why 50 to 80 is the recommended economic speed? But 10 km per hour, which is far less than the speed of the 50 to 80, but they are telling it is not economic. It will demand more fuel, they are saying. That's what they're saying, right? If they are saying economic speed is 50 to 80, so below that also, you have to give more fuel. Above that speed also, you have to spend more fuel. So fuel economy is there in that particular range. Why it's so? Anybody given a thought of this? So we'll see in a graph. This you will study if you are going to subscribe a mechanical engineering course, engineering. In IC engines, you will be studying this. So fuel consumption and the speed. So here you see, when the object is straight, there is no fuel consumption. When it is at 0 speed, there is no fuel, it's 0. But it's drastically increasing to 14 liter. It's drastically increasing to 14 liter. That is this is the definition of a fuel consumption. That is liter per 100 kilometer. Okay, whatever maybe. We'll consume, there is a 14 liter it's consuming. So 14 liter it's consuming to rise to 10 kilometer per hour. From 0 to 10, it has taken this much fuel. But when the speed is increasing, the fuel consumption is reducing. It is dropped down to 12, 10, 8, and this is the range they are giving to you, green speed. So if you maintain the speed at here, your fuel consumption will be less. But again, if you increase the speed is increasing. Why this strange behavior? So from always data, you can understand the behavior of something. So this data is giving you The strange feeling, right? Anybody has thought about the strangeness? Why this is a strange behavior for a vehicle? Initially, it has taken from 0 to 10 only I pushed, but it has taken a lot of fuel. But from 10 to 50, it's keep on reducing. For every 10 kilometer per hour, the fuel consumption is reducing by a liter, you can say, or by 2 liters, you can say. Why this strangeness is there? Anybody? Can you get the strangeness here? As per me, when I start from 0, it should go like a straight line. Correct, no? What I'm expecting is a graph from 0 to like this. When you increase the speed, fuel consumption should increase. So I'm expecting a straight line. But what I got here from the observation, from the results, I got a strange graph. Why this graph? Anybody? Any one person? I'm not asking you the answer, correct answer. I'm asking you what you're feeling about it. What may be the reason for this? From your common sense. Engineering is full of common sense, but physics is not common sense. So engineering, you apply your common sense. So can you apply your common sense and tell me why this strangeness in the fuel economy? Anybody? Actually, I want you to participate because this is not a class. I'm not a teacher. My profession is different. I'm here to make you to fall in love with physics, not to hate physics. I'll ensure that.
So can you repeat the question, sir?
No, the question is the fuel consumption in a bike. When the bike is moving, you increase the speed from 0 to 10, 20, 30, you're increasing the speed of the bike. What I'm expecting, fuel consumption also should increase like a straight line. But what from you can observe from the graph, initially it has taken so much fuel, but it is keep on reducing. When the speed is increasing, the fuel consumption is reducing. And again, it is started increasing. So why this strange behavior? Obviously, everyone will expect, no, when I am increasing the speed, fuel consumption will increase, keep on increase. But here you see, the first 10 kilometer per hour, it has taken so much amount of fuel. But after every 10 kilometer per hour, it has taken only less amount. It is reducing down. Can you see in the graph? Then this only they're recommending. The companies are recommending the engine will have the economic speed of 50 to 80 kilometers. If you run the engine in this speed, you will have the minimum fuel consumption. So that only they are giving to you. So my question is, why this strangeness?
Sir, the vehicle will be in speed, so the fuel consumption will be less. Vehicle
Okay,
will be in speed.
you're almost at 80% of the answer. You're almost. Vehicle will be in speed. What it offers to the vehicle?
So acceleration.
Acceleration means you are giving the fuel. What she is telling, vehicle in the speed will take less amount of fuel. So I can say differently, vehicle at rest to attain the first 10 kilometer per hour, it will take more amount of fuel. Am I right? That's what she has said. Who is that? Can I interpret like that? Vehicle in speed, when it is changing the speed, it is taking less amount of fuel. But vehicle at rest, when you want to attain the first speed, that is 10 kilometer per hour, from 0 to 10 kilometer per hour, it has taken more fuel. Correct? Is it so? Because of the rest only this consumption. Are you getting the point? Yes. When the vehicle is at rest, to move the vehicle from the rest to some finite speed, it has taken hell amount of a fuel. Why? Because the mass got the resistance. You will think because it is on the earth is pulling it down, the friction is there, so I am giving more amount of fuel. No, you keep it on space also, where there is no gravity. So we will leave about weight. We will speak about mass. Mass is the constituents of the matter, amount of substance, the quantity of matter inside any object. So that count, how much is that? That will be always constant for a given object. So we leave about earth. We'll keep the mass in space. You will keep your bike in space. Okay. So we leave earth. Now we are taking your bike to space. You are at rest with respect to some frame of reference we'll fix. So when your bike at rest in the space, you want to move from 0 to 10. it's going to consume same amount of fuel? Is it going to consume same amount of fuel? Yes, more or less same, because the resistance what you feel on the earth to push the bike from 0 to 10, it is because of inertia. The inertia, the internal property, not because of the earth gravity. Earth gravity will give you the friction between the wheel and the road, but the friction is going to help you to move, rolling friction. It will help you to roll. It will never going to stop. So this whatever friction is there in the parts, that will be there always in the space also. Okay. So actually more or less same amount of fuel will be consumed because of the inertia possessed by the bike, not because of the weight. So the mass of the bike is having that inertia. It is at the rest. To move it, you need a force. So once it moves, it attains the momentum. So once it's at 10 km/h, it is in a momentum. So it wants to move in the same speed. So from 10, you are further increasing to another 10. So already it is in a momentum in the same direction. If you want to increase in the same direction, it demands less amount of fuel, because only you are increasing the momentum from 10 to 20. But from 0 to 10, you want to increase the speed also, you want to push the mass also. So the two factors come into play. The speed also are increasing, the mass also you are pushing. So the what Newton said, the state of rest and changing the uniform motion. So both state you are disturbing there. So when you are disturbing the both state there, you need a extra amount of force. But when it is in motion, the mass already in motion, it will not offer that much resistance to you as the mass, but as a speed, it will offer you the resistance to change. So that will be little amount of resistance. So your fuel consumption is less. So when you keep on going, the fuel consumption will be less, but in the space, but this is on earth, but in the space, if you increase the speed, it will be going like this. So from 0, it will reach one point, then it will go like a straight line. It will never come down and increase. First it will increase to one level, then it will move in a straight line. It will never come down and go. So this portion is where both will coincide. For example, if I am in space from 0 to 50, if you are pushing, you can keep from 0 to 10, it will go here. 6. From 6 liters of fuel it will consume to attain the 10 km/h speed. From 6, it will go in a straight line. So each 10 km/h, it is going to increase the fuel consumption by 2 liters, because you are accelerating. If you want to accelerate, you want to give the fuel. But in space, if you want to maintain the same speed, what will happen? From 0 to 6, I am giving the fuel. It has attained the 10 km/h speed, but I want to leave at the same speed. What will be the fuel consumption further? It will be 0. It will fall down to 0, because in space, there is no further force required to keep the same speed. So if I increase the speed from 0 to 10, if I leave at 10, I know that to give further fuel. I can turn off the accelerator and I can sleep. So the vehicle will be moving at a 10 km/h in the space, always. But you want to change the speed, again you have to give the little amount of fuel, not the same amount of fuel from 0 to 6. Because already the body is in, the spaceship is in motion. So in space, so the dynamics in space, or whatever automobiles, the vehicles in space vehicles, the fuel consumption will be different. What we are experiencing on the earth. Okay, got it? Hello, want your acknowledgement? You got this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So now we can say quantitatively. So what we have seen so far is only an argument. So whatever we made as an argument. So now we can say quantitatively, the forces depends on change in speed. So need a force to change in speed. Everybody is agreeing? Everybody is agreeing on this? Or any dispute?
Yes, sir.
Everybody is agreeing. Force is required to change the speed, not to maintain the speed. Correct? Everybody? Okay. Force is required. Force also depends on the mass. Any doubt in that? Any dispute in this? Because I'm making this statement based on the observation. So you think like a Newton. You are in the position of Newton. Now you are making observation, you don't know anything, laws of motion. Now whatever you observed from Galileo experiment, we are making this statement. I made this statement, force is proportional to mass. Based on Galileo experiment, I am saying. Because when the mass of the ball is bigger, the force will be bigger. When the mass of the feather is smaller, the force will be smaller in order to maintain the same acceleration. It will fall at the same rate of change of velocity. So every second, the velocity will change at the same rate for both the mass because the force is changing. Depends on the mass it is acting. Especially gravitational force will change for the given mass. So force is not constant. The gravitational force is not constant. The gravitational force depends upon the which mass you are speaking. So the question is important. Which mass you are speaking? So if you are speaking about the bowling ball, the gravitational force will be different. If you are speaking about the feather, the gravitational force on the feather will be different. According to the mass into play, the gravitational force will change. So the acceleration remains same. So same force means the lighter object will fall faster, right? What Aristotle believed. Lighter objects fall faster. No. Heavier objects fall faster and lighter objects fall slower if the same amount of force. That's what he believed. But the force is varying. For the heavier object, it is bigger. For smaller objects, it's smaller. So the acceleration is constant. That's what you have seen in the video in the vacuum chamber, the falling of a bowling ball and feather at the same rate. So any dispute in this? Force depends on the mass. Anybody? You can dispute me. We can argue on that. Anybody? Hello? Everybody is agreeing on this? These two factors, at least. So I am going to construct quantitatively force required to change the speed and force depends upon the mass in the question. We'll move ahead. So now one more factor comes into play. Not only change in speed and mass, but also the time. But the time is not directly proportional, it's inversely proportional. Because to change up for a given mass, for example 1 kilogram mass, to change its speed from 1 to 10 kilometers per hour, you can do it in a faster way or a slower way. That also depends upon the force. If you give bigger force, the change, same amount of change for the same mass will happen in less time. But if you give the lesser force, it will take more time. So that's what they will be telling you as one more factor when you are buying vehicles. They will be telling you that it depends upon the brake horsepower. How much speed it is going to reach in a fraction of seconds. Your vehicle. For example, top speed. How much time it will take to reach the top speed. So that is depends upon the brake horsepower of the engine, the vehicle what you are buying. So that also one more factor they will be showing in the automobile. So force also indirectly proportional time taken. More time you give, less force to change that speed. But in the less time you want to make the same change for the same mass, you need to give a bigger force. So everybody agreeing on this? Force is inversely proportional to time taken. Yes? Okay, right. Okay. I assumed everybody agreed upon. Okay. Now here's the strange question. Only these three factors. This anybody can say. Okay, whatever we see here, no, anybody can say this from our observation. It no need geniusness to understand this. But does force depends only on these three factors? Or one more factor is there? Anybody? Only these three factors? The force depends? Or any additional factor is there? You believe any additional factor is there or you don't believe? At least you say that. You believe, you don't believe. That's it. Only these three is there. Apart from that, nothing. Do you believe? Or something hidden thing is there? Hidden agenda is here? The answer is no. Because, okay, but actually the answer is no. When I'm saying change in speed, you're always thinking about 1 kilometer per hour to 10 kilometer, only change in magnitude. Correct? In your brain, it never struck about the direction. So direction of the speed also important, because if you recall the first law of Newton, he said uniform motion in a straight line. So to keep the object in a uniform motion in a straight line, you don't need a force. Only to change that you need a force, he said. But in a straight line, he said. So what about the same speed if I want to change the direction of that object? So the object moving in the same speed, but only I want to change the direction. Definitely you need a force. Okay. So only the change of speed doesn't require force. The change of direction of speed also requires a force. So that is the key point. This everyone will forget. This everyone will take it for granted. But this you remember. This only demands for new mathematical tool. In our next slides, we are going to see this key factor only demands what Newton has written. Uniform motion along a straight line. He is calling for a new mathematical tool in the future. Okay, that tool is called vectors. So his requirement has been met by the mathematical tool after development of mechanics. So initially he is not dealt with vectors, but afterwards it got developed. So he understood the nature, and the mathematics has been developed for the nature to written in the language what the nature is speaking. Correct? So we are developing mathematics not to simply torture you. We are developing the mathematics to understand the nature, because the existing tool is not sufficient to define what nature is communicating to us. So only advancement is happening in mathematics. So we got the vectors into play because we want to play with the quantity which is having magnitude and direction. So forces depends upon change of direction of speed also. So as I said, the crucial point. So you may ask, our smiley person has come, what's the big deal? So here you see, this example I'll tell you and close today. What you can see, the object is moving at the same speed, uniform circular motion in a gravity-free region. Everything you think of space, you leave Earth. Everything you think in space. So the object is moving at the same speed. So as per Newton, when something is moving at same speed, we don't need a force, right? Do we need a force? Don't we need a force? Please, in the chat box, quick. Do you think there is no force in action here? If you understood, actually here force in action. Actually here force in action. So what kind of force in action? Yes, what kind of force? Because Newton said, we are now exploring. We are like Newton now. Okay, Newton doesn't know centripetal force now in the history, because he's going to explore it. So we are making the journey along with them. How the history developed, like that only are going to understand everything. So we leave the fancy terms here. Okay, centripetal, these fancy terms we leave. We will learn how Newton learned. Okay, then it will be sitting in your brain. So what Newton said in his first law of motion, every object will move in the same speed, that is uniform motion, in a straight line, along a straight line. But here you see, the object is not in a straight line. It is rotating. So some force continuously changing its direction of motion. The direction of motion. From the straight line motion, it has been continuously pulled away. So don't you think there is a force into play? So obviously there is a force into play. That force is a perpendicular force to the direction of motion. It is continuously pulling the object's direction. But you observe here that force will never change the magnitude of the speed. It only changes the direction of the speed. So now you understood the given force or any force, it not only depends upon the magnitude of speed, change of speed, but also direction of speed. So when an object moves in a straight line, you don't need a force. But you want to change its direction, you need a force. You can understand here. See here, the object is moving in a straight line with uniform velocity, v1. When you suddenly switch on the force, it is turning the direction. But every time, the direction will be tangential to this path, that is perpendicular to the force. So now again switch off the force, it will move in the same straight line. So what you have done here, you have just turned the object from one direction to other direction. For that you supplied a force here in the direction perpendicular to the motion. So it has turned this direction, and if you switch off the force here, Here you switch on, you turn the direction. You switch off, it will continue in the same direction as Newton first law said. It will continue in the same state of motion, like because of inertia. But I mentioned here v1 vector, v2 vector, only to differentiate. Both are different in direction, but magnitude wise, both are same. So now we have purpose of vector here. So change of vector means not only magnitude, it's about direction also. So I differentiated v1 and v2. I never mentioned both are same. Both are different, not in magnitude, but in direction. But if you calculate the magnitude, both will be same. So when I say change of speed, you have to consider about change of direction also. You have to ask me, sir, what about direction? Any change is there? If I say there's a change of direction, then you can take it for granted. Definitely there is a force in a play. Okay, fine. We'll
Sir,
close this session. Yeah, tell me.
even a clock pendulum is the example of this, no, sir?
Clock pendulum on the earth you are speaking? On the earth or in the vacuum? And which condition, which environmental condition you are speaking? In a gravity region?
Yes, sir.
In a gravity region when there is no friction. So what condition we are speaking? That is more important. You are saying a clock pendulum. You have to speak about vacuum condition or the friction. They design in such a way there is a zero friction. That means minimum amount of friction, negligible friction. When the pendulum will be, then the pendulum will be oscillating eternally. But we can't say that is because of gravity. That pendulum is changing its energy. It's gaining the potential energy and losing the potential energy. That's what happening in the pendulum.
Okay.
There the force is constant, but it is not perpendicular to the direction of motion. It is changing the speed also. So the speed will be maximum at the center position and it will be zero at the end of the cycle. Like when it is oscillating, at the end of the oscillation, it will reach us to zero. It will reach the maximum potential. So that potential energy, again, it is used to increase the kinetic energy. So it's an interplay between the kinetic energy and potential energy. You will be seeing like pendulum is oscillating eternally. But here what I'm saying, what I want you to know, the direction of motion, changing the direction of motion also required the force, even though I'm maintaining the same speed. So this is crucial. See, I never change the speed. Then you can say, sir, there is no change of speed. How come force come into play? And there is no change of speed. If you put it in Newton's law, the change of speed equal to zero, then force is zero, no? But what I meant to say is change of direction. So only Newton has created demand for the new mathematical tool. So when you say change of speed, you should keep it in mind. Are you saying only magnitude? Are you saying direction? You have to ask yourself. When anybody is saying change of speed, you have to take two questions. Only magnitude or direction, or both you are speaking. If you keep the magnitude constant, you change the direction, you need a force. If you keep the direction constant, you change the magnitude, you need a force. If you change the magnitude, change the direction, again you need a force. Understood? So force is required to change the direction of the speed, to change the magnitude of the speed, or to change the both. Okay?
Okay, sir.
Everybody understood this? This is the crucial point here. Okay, fine.